everyone, this is Ascending High Priestess. I hope you guys are doing well. And like always, if you guys are new to the Ascending High Priestess gang, welcome, welcome, welcome. And for those of you who are new, thank you, thank you, thank you. I decided to start something new, and basically, this is going to be me talking about different topics that are pretty common in the spiritual community. Okay, um, so this will be titled Real Talk Wild Cards. Okay, and each time that you see a post, it's going to have a different topic. Today's topic is going to be working with your spiritual team. So, what takes, a person that is on a spiritual path? What, where exactly do you find your spiritual team? How do you inquire this? For some of us, it is a challenge because we are new to the spiritual community, and we may not even know who to pray to, what to ask for, how to ask. Okay, and there are different things that you need to be aware of. So, the first thing that you guys need to do, to start sort of working with your spiritual team is figuring out how to connect with your team. So that would take a lot of guidance from them, and that takes a lot of communication. So, everybody has their way of communicating with them. Personally, for me, I talk to my team like they were my friends. Okay, I talk to my team constantly. I keep them up to date on what I'm doing, and you know what? They already know what I'm doing, but I kind of let them in on what I may be thinking, what I may maybe having trouble with. Just kind of like if it was a friend, you know what I mean, and you're picking up the phone and you're chatting with them. That's how I, work with my team. Other people have it more formal, okay? They set up altars, they set up different, a different space, and then they approach the altar and they talk to them. I have an altar myself, but we'll get to that later on. Um, your first step is establishing communication. Okay, establishing communication with your team. And how do you do this? Some people like to light candles. Some people like to use sage. Some people do incense. Some people like to be outside in nature. Some people like to formally pray, and use a rosary. Everyone here is different. We all come from different backgrounds. So you may incorporate your, the traditions of your background, your nationality, your ethnicity into your practices. You know, um, Communication, like I said, is important, but also stillness and clarity. Okay, you need to spend a few minutes meditating, and I don't mean like, meditating formally while you're looking at a clock, and you're doing all these mind tricks. Some people are able to do stuff like that. I personally have a hard time. I get very distracted very quickly. um, but I find that I can get into a meditative state with music. Okay, so you have to find what works for you. Some people like to chant, some people like to formally pray, some people like, going outside for a walk and then, connecting like that. So you need to basically find what feels most comfortable for you. Don't worry about, that you read somewhere that, you have to buy a bunch of candles and you got to do this and you got to dress a certain way and you got to do it on a Friday or you got to do this on a Sunday and it has to be a full moon. That's just technicalities. And honestly, when you're getting into spirituality, a lot of the connection, it has to be real and it has to be, that other stuff, it kind of gets in the way, okay? So you need to sort of speak from your heart and let them know what it is that you are asking for. Are you asking for protection? Are you asking for a new job? Are you asking them to support you and your endeavors? Are you asking them to, I don't know, help you find a home? Are you asking them for love? There's a million different things that you may be asking them. However, and I say this with, you know, with a grain of salt. Okay, take everything that I'm saying with a grain of salt because everybody's different. Um, don't just come to your ancestors when you need them, or don't just come to your team of highest residents just when you need them. Okay, so you're not just gonna come to them like every other day just because you want a boyfriend. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to work if it's just a one-sided and a wanting type of relationship. There has to be an actual relationship with your team, and they already know you. They know the good, the bad, and the ugly. They just want to be able to help you and understand you in the best way possible. So I hope that makes sense. And when you're talking to your team, and I stress this with all my heart, make sure that you're doing it and you're being honest, open, and respectful. Okay, you never want to approach any situation with a spiritual deity or your ancestors in a way where it's demeaning, okay, where you're being cross with them, or you're being demanding, like I better get this job next Tuesday or I'm not gonna talk to you guys ever again, or I better see some responses regarding my job promotion on Friday, or I'm not going to light any more candles for you guys. That's not the way it works, because in all honesty, there are some deities and some spiritual guides that you obviously do not mess with. Okay, they could really tear a big one on you. Okay, so you need to always, always, always be respectful, be open, and create an atmosphere and create a relationship that is, not just open, but that, the vibe is high, that is, you're able to, like I said, go to them whenever or and wherever you need them, okay? And request a sign. So when you are talking to, let's say, an ancestor, and you put in a petition. Let's say the petition is, um, again, let's stick with the job. Let's say the petition is for a job. Don't leave it up to the ancestors to just provide, you know, to kind of decipher the information and kind of let it go. You sometimes need to be very specific. Excuse me. Sometimes you need to be very specific, okay? Sometimes you need to be like, okay, I need a job because I need a better financial stability to be able to live, in my current home. Please make sure that you provide me a sign in the form of a feather. Okay, so whatever sign that you pick, whether whatever is meaningful for you. So if let's say a feather resonates, you pick a feather. If a butterfly resonates, you pick a butterfly. If it's a siren, you pick a siren. You know what I mean? So you have to pick something that is meaningful for you, so that way when you hear or see something that pertains to this job and you see your sign, you are able to kind of make that connection, like, oh, it's working, or oh, they're working on it. Okay, so that way you're not left waiting and trying to figure out, because spiritual beings sometimes, and I'm saying this with love too, it can be very, very confusing at times. And you may be waiting and waiting and waiting. You're like, I kind of put in this petition like a month ago and nothing's happening. Or I put in this, this petition 6 weeks ago. Like, what's going on? Like, I haven't heard anything. And again, divine timing is a lot different than timing in the 3D. So patience is always key. Okay? Respect, patience, and use your voice to set the tone and set the pace of what it is that you want with your team. For some of you, you may get intuitive nudges, that certain things are happening for you and that the ancestors or spirit team are listening. For others of you, you may get dreams, or you may see symbols. Okay, everyone is different. Again, for some of you, you may get just a feeling that, hey, this is going to be okay. And that's another thing. When you ask your spirit team for certain things, don't don't keep asking like a 2-year-old kid, like, can I have this? Can I have this? Can I have this? Okay, ask with, all your heart, and then kind of let it go. They are going to be working on it. If it's something that is meant for you and is right for you, they will work on it. Okay, they will try to make it happen as best as possible. And for some of you, you know, that opportunity, let's say for a job, may come in a completely different package. You may be asking for an opportunity at your current job, and it turns out that there may be some weird glitches with that specific opportunity. So they may completely reroute you and send you off to a new job by you being let go of your current job. Okay, and it turns out that this new job had better perks, better pay, and is better suited to your needs. Okay, so you really have to sort of believe and trust that the team that you're working with, they do have your back. Okay, so it's a give and take, and it's a relationship like any other relationship that is built on trust. All right, so how is it that you pick your spiritual team? So for a lot of us, before we landed here on this wonderful little planet Earth, and this wonderful 3D realm, we actually got to pick some of our team. Okay, so some of our team has been they've been with us from the very beginning. All right, and they've been here on assignment to see you through certain things. Some spiritual guides are here to make sure that you're always safe in certain situations. Some spiritual guides are here for specific jobs, like let's say whenever you go through a broken heart. Okay, let's just stick with that. Um, there's a specific spiritual guide that is on assignment. So whenever you experience a broken heart, they are there to kind of comfort you and see you through and make sure that you learn some lessons through that. Excuse me. There are guides that are with you for very specific things. Like there may be guides that will see you through sickness. Um, they are just with you to the point of when you were born. Or, from the age of, let's say, 1 through 5, and then another one comes in. So, it's a very different type of relationship, just but not even different, because in life we sort of have the same things. We have friends that we've had in grammar school we no longer see, and we grow up and we pick new friends, etc., etc. And I guess, the same thing happens with the spiritual team as well, that some stay and some go, some change and some don't. And how is it that you, I guess, add to that spiritual team? So I've heard from a lot of people that, and it's interesting that they're drawn to certain deities, and they want to work with certain deities. And to put it simply, there are deities that um, don't have many rules, and they will work with you. And they will work with you if you're respectful, and if you're, obviously um, willing to have that partnership and that give and take with them. There are deities that require you, um, certain things from you, and that other deities may not require. Let's say Oshun, for instance. Oshun, she likes her gifts. She likes, her sons and daughters to, gift her things, but in return, she's going to give you so much more. And then there are, other deities that, as long as you sort of ask their help and they're respectful, they're cool with that. However, um, you also have to take into consideration your lineage. All right. I've heard from a lot of people when they say, "Oh, I'm so drawn to," again, let's stick with Oshun. "I'm so drawn to Oshun, and I want her to work with me." Or, "I'm so drawn to Odin, and I want him to work with me." There are certain deities that you don't choose them, they choose you. All right. And I say that with, again, a lot of love and respect. You may love them, you may revere them, you may want to work with them, but they may not necessarily want to work with you in a specific way. Okay. And it doesn't mean that you know they didn't like, let's say, an offering, or they didn't like the, I guess, the nod to being asked to join. It's just that certain deities only work with certain people. Let's put it this way. And you have to have sometimes a certain lineage to work with certain deities. And certain deities are very strong willed. Odin's one of them, okay? For those of you who want to work with Odin. Odin is a very, very strong god. Okay, he's a very strong god. He doesn't work with everyone, even with people within that lineage. He doesn't work with everyone. He chooses his sons and daughters. Okay, he wants to make sure that you are that badass that is going to be ready for battle. Okay, and he chooses you. Oshun is the same way, very sweet, very kind, very happy. However, she will let you know right off the bat that she doesn't work with everyone. Okay, and like I said, you may do small offerings, you may do prayers, and you may wonder, why isn't anything that I'm saying are working? It may be that. It may be that she just does not resonate with you, and Odin may be someone that doesn't resonate with you as well. So you will get that answer. It may not be the answer that you are seeking, but you will get an answer. Another deity that is a very strong willed um, soul, okay, and is Shango, okay? Shango is very, very strong will. You don't, people say, oh, well, I gravitate towards him. I love the drums. I have a lot of passion and fiery temper, and I'm just like him. However, that may be true, but that doesn't mean that he's going to work with you. Okay, he's another one that he will choose you. You don't choose him, he will choose you. Again, you could respectfully pray to him, and he may bless you, and but he's not going to formally go out of his way to work with you. Working with ancestors is a little bit different. We all have ancestors, good and bad and in between. So you need to be very careful, as well as when you ask, I want to work with ancestors, okay? You can't work with everyone. It's just like if you're in a regular job. You can't work with everyone. There are people who are complete idiots that you don't want to work with. There are people who, are sneaky or, cheaters. There are people who are great at their job, and you're like, wow, I want to be just like Betty down at, the hallway office. She always gets the job done. So when you're picking your spiritual team, you're doing the same thing. You're combining. Think of it as a soccer team. You want to make sure you have the best players in your team. So by doing that, you're asking for, the ancestors of the highest white light. The ancestors that are evolved, the ancestors that, have ascended and have mastered certain lessons and things and are able to help you the best way possible. Okay, let's see. So one of the other ways that you could, and people kind of like, they switch the terms ancestors and spirit guides, and spirit guides and ancestors. So an ancestor can be a spirit guide. They may have been assigned to you to help and guide you. Okay, and then there are spirit guides that are not ancestors. Okay, they may have things in common with you. They may there's a certain purpose that may align with your purpose, and they're there to kind of help you through navigate your universe, your life. So there's going to be an inner knowing, a spark, when you recognize or when you resonate with a certain deity or a certain spirit guide. Okay, you also again keep that communication going with them. A lot of times it's through meditation. Some people are actually really, really good at free writing. Like I said, I am good to a certain point. I get distracted very easy. So, and I'm being very honest with you guys. My thing is music, so I can meditate with music. I go outside, and I'm really good at connecting with my ancestors just by talking, okay? And some people feel like they may have a psychic connection with their team. And if you do, that's great. Make sure that you also work that. That's a muscle. Work with that and keep talking to them and keep working with them. Spirit is energy, and so are we. So you also have to mentally and energetically make sure there are no blockages, okay? And emotionally, to make sure that you are in a space that when you are speaking with them, um, that you're not angry, okay? And I know that's hard to say because sometimes we do get angry. Make sure that you are in a space of more, what's the word? I want to make sure that when you are angry, you're not coming across disrespectful. Okay, if that makes sense. You always want to make sure that you are respectful to them. And if you are angry, and because we all get angry and frustrated, and we cry and whatever, they understand that, they see that. But that sometimes when you do get angry or frustrated, that may actually energetically block you, and you want to make sure that energy wise you're not forcing the conversation. You're being open, so that way you're more open to receive. And don't let doubt and fear kind of create a barrier. Always do things with faith, and just make sure that you are well aware that there is a divine timing, that you may ask for something and you may want like results immediately, and unfortunately with divine timing it just doesn't happen. There is no immediate response, and unless like something is so obvious, they're like, they're gonna be like, okay, Katie, no. All right, Richard, absolutely not. That kind of thing. And you practice and practice and practice and trust and have patience. Okay? You have to raise your vibrational frequency when you are talking to your deities and your team of highest resonance. Why is that? It is a lot easier to receive contact with these beings when you are actually you're vibing very, very high. So how do you vibe higher? Music, okay, going out to nature, sitting still and meditating. Reiki is great if you're into that. And just sitting in a space where you're able to kind of let go of a lot of the chaos and a lot of the noise of the daily grind, okay? Um, that's easier said than done for some people. But if you could even do like 10 minutes, even while you're in the shower sometimes, when that's the most peaceful, place in your environment and during your day, then do that, just, meditate as you're taking a shower and see how that works for you. Some people do it early in the morning, when they get up, and that's the best time. And you check with yourself, how am I feeling? Am I feeling good? Am I feeling sad? It's my energy feeling low. And, take it from there. If your energy is feeling low and you're sad, you can have that quick conversation with your guides and your spirit guides and deities and say, let me just get through my day. um, guide me, protect me. What is it that I need to do to get this relationship stronger, make this better for me and you? They'll give you answers, okay? Again, ask for a sign. Ask for a sign that means something to you. Don't just like randomly, I don't know, because you don't know what to ask for, all of a sudden say, "Oh, I want a sign and I want a giant bumblebee." But you don't live anywhere, where you see a lot of bumblebees, or you may be in a place where obviously bumblebees are not even a thing, I don't know. But you have to pick something that is actually very close to you, close to your heart, that it's meaningful to you and it's meaningful to your heart and it's meaningful to your ancestors. I know for me, like, every time I see a blue jay and a cardinal, I know right away those are my grandmothers, okay? And we've established that. Some people like seeing pink flowers, okay, or white flowers. I had a friend that every time she would see a white flower, just either in a movie or we would be walking, she would like, that's from my dad. You know what I mean? So you have to, and I have another friend actually who adores hearts. So she knows that every time her team is trying to reach her or send her a message of, hey, we're here, we're listening to you, we got you, she sees the shape of a heart. So you have to find that thing that works for you and keep the conversation going. Keep communication open, okay? So that way you are listening and develop, you know, this relationship that you want. You know, and a lot of people are like, well, we're spirit guides people. Not necessarily. Spirit guides are more spiritual. These are spiritual beings that have been assigned to you, okay? They have been assigned for specific jobs. Ancestors are actually people that were living at one point and are now ancestors, okay? And I know it's confusing because sometimes people interchange them, um, but that's the gist of it. And guides are there again to guide you and to protect you and to help you get through whatever it is that you need to work on. Okay, so if you're having issues with, let's say, your marriage, or you're having issues with, attaining that appropriate job or a goal that, you always feel like you're missing, there are guides specifically for that for you, and you just need to sort of open that door and let them through and figure out which way to sort of communicate with them. What is the best way to communicate with your team? Again, it doesn't, you don't need like this weird formal, oh my God, I got to do this on Saturday and I have to, make sure that I'm there for an hour. No, nobody needs that, okay? No, they're not asking for that. Like I said, there are some deities that are very, very strict about certain things, but for the most part, most of your spirit guides and ancestors and deities just want that communication to start, you know, to start you on your path. And as far as ancestor altars, so it really depends, okay? It really depends, again, on your lineage and ancestry. There are certain people from certain lineages that may have an ancestor altar in their home or a specific room in their home. And there are certain people that, they were not raised to have that kind of stuff in their home. They may do it in the cemetery. They may have an ancestor, I guess, altar, or kind of looks like a mausoleum, because I've seen them in the cemetery. And this is where everyone from the family comes in and sits down with the ancestors to talk, okay? It really is up to you and what you feel personally comfortable doing, okay? And how you're able to do it. Some ancestors, they want pictures. They want their pictures, and they want to be, they kind of still want to be in your life. So they want to be remembered, Some, if that's not your thing, don't worry about it. Then it's not your thing. A simple candle may do. Incense, some, people put out fruit and candies and coffee and liquor and you name it, they put it out. Again, it is up to you and your lineage, okay? Find out what is who is, it takes a lot of research, okay? Being on a spiritual path, it's like being in school. There are different levels, okay? There are different levels to this. And, as long as you're coming from the heart and you're starting your journey and doing it for the right reasons and you're being respectful, they will show you that they're going to be working with you. Don't worry if you don't have, the right altar or the right cups, or, you don't have the right smelling incense, and you don't, have the right crystals next to the cups, or, the right picture. That's all, like, everything will come in its time. You have to do what you need to do in the right time. Let's put it this way. Communication first. Find out who is part of your lineage. If you have Nordic lineage, then obviously those Nordic gods are going to be working with you. If your lineage is more of Latin lineage, then you have to kind of figure out, okay, it, which Latin country my deities come from, and let's start there. If you're from an Afro-centric community, then you know that your lineage is going to be more of the African deities, and you have to incorporate that in a very respectful way, okay? So I hope this resonated with you guys. Please hit share, like, and subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.